Hi, everyone. I am Jade Walters, creatively known as Jade Carson, and I'm the founding editor of the Ninth Semester. So, the Ninth Semester is an early career resource blog where I provide tips, tricks, and share various job opportunities, specifically early career job opportunities for Gen Z professionals. I went to Howard University. I'm a May 2021 Howard University graduate with the BS in health education and a concentration in maternal and child health. I actually did a career pivot, which we'll get into today because we have a few submitted questions about that. So I can really speak on that. I was at Howard. I was a campus rep for a few companies such as Ethos, Tinder, and Bumble, as well as a member of the first business and professional sorority for African American women, Iota Phi Lambda. I currently work at WayUp, which is very exciting, very full circle. Because fun fact, I actually used WayUp in my college years. Like I found out about it, I want to say 2018. I think they had did a campaign with Her Campus, and I was a writer for Her Campus, so very familiar with them. And I started using it. I actually got my campus rep role at Ethos because of WayUp, which was very exciting. I work as our employer branding specialist, and then just like my expertise in early career resources, I've been really able to just learn a lot and just help Gen Zers get jobs, get internships, feel prepared when they get these. I previously worked at TikTok as a client solutions planner on their business to consumer advertising. So that was really dope. But outside of work, you can find me on the ninth semester. I post a lot on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. My name's on the screen, so Jade Walters, so I'll pop up. Ooh, oh my gosh, I love a Her Campus. I see someone else join in they're in the Her Campus. Yes, I was in Her Campus my first 2 years at college. So getting into today's session, it is very chill. This is a ask me anything. So this is your opportunity as, soon to be grads, recent grads, current college students. If you have any questions about just like how to find an internship, how to navigate this job market, because I know like everyone's been hearing like it's crazy out here. It's very crazy. I'm not gonna lie. So, ooh, and yeah, we definitely have a few questions that were sent in advance, but feel free to also submit your questions in the chat box. I'm gonna actually pull up some questions that were submitted in advance. So this first question is, what are some other platforms other than LinkedIn to find jobs, especially remote, which I really love. I'm actually gonna stop sharing my screen or we're gonna go into WayUp. So if you're not familiar, WayUp is actually another job platform that you can use to find jobs on, specifically for students looking for internships or entry-level roles. So, when you first start your WayUp account, one of the things that is recommended is to really complete your profile. So going into mine is not completed because in my defense, it's been a while. So, but I've been very familiar with the process. Like if I was a college student, I would take the time to fill out this profile. So this is kind of like LinkedIn. This is kind of like the LinkedIn on WayUp where you get to just highlight all the awesome things that you're doing. So there's a section where you put your education and your major. You can put a fun fact. A fun fact about me is that I'm a DOLNA trained childbirth doula because, I was majoring in maternal and child health, very passionate about that realm. And I think this is really cool because employers who are here, they're able to learn a fun fact about you. You can put your skills, you can put any volunteer experiences, your hobbies, and then of course your different work experience. And it's very passionate to, not very passionate, it's very important to have this completed because when employers that you're applying for their roles on what WayUp sees your profile, they get to know more about you. They get, a glimpse into who you are as a student. So something that I feel like not a lot of people know about WayUp is that we partner with a lot of different companies. So what that means is these companies, they're coming to us and they're very serious and very passionate about looking for talent such as yourself. So from here, they're able to work with us to share their job listings. Sometimes they host virtual events, which I think is super important, which we'll touch in soon. But here are some of our companies. Like we pretty much have companies for every industry. I know a lot of you are in the marketing in the comms realm, and trust me, there are so many marketing internships and opportunities here. What I would love for you all to do, who, you mentioned that you're in marketing or comms or just whatever your major is, comment down below and tell me like some of your favorite companies or like companies that you would love to work at. So I see a question came in. Since you work for WayUp, do you know if they use certain servers to scan the online resumes, aka the profile you just showed us? Do you think certain words are important? I think one of the most important things about your profile that really helps you when you're navigating on the platform is, for me, I have that I'm a marketing major. I wasn't a marketing major, but because I have here that I'm a marketing major, it kind of helps in filtering the different roles that they're going to introduce to you. So the more details that you're putting in your profile, like the more specific you're being about what you're looking for, it allows us on the back end to push those roles into you because like it will be noted in our systems, okay, this person, they're a marketing major. They're specifically looking for, like, you can be specific about the type of marketing or and the more your profile is completed, it kind of allows us to like match you with those roles or recommend those roles that we think would be best for you. And that's important because that way it kind of like you kind of don't have to do too much work there because like guess we're kind of like bringing those roles to you. So I always encourage people to really fill out your profile because people are looking at it and it allows us to help you more because if we know more about you, we're able to continuously share those opportunities with you. So, okay, I see some people are sharing their companies. So Dior, ooh, nice. Sony, Google, the Met. So kind of like in that like fashion tech realm, NPR, YouTube. So something I really like about WayUp is, like I said, if you're looking for a specific industry or just like a specific role, you can look it up and we'll have it. Like for example, for marketing, I type in marketing, you're going to see a bunch of roles that has that word in it. So for marketing, like if you're specifically looking for marketing internships, if you put that there and you can narrow it down by the job type. So if we narrow it down to internships, now we're able to see all of the marketing internships that are on this platform. And what I really like too is that because these companies are partnering with WayUp, that lets you know as an applicant that they're very serious about hiring early career talent. And the way I kind of like to see it, I kind of like to see it as like a referral. Like a lot of people talk about the importance of having referrals when you're applying for roles. And when you apply for a role, like for example, how Adobe has this 2024 intern for a product marketing manager. Once you apply specifically on WayUp, Adobe knows now that you've applied from WayUp. And because they've invested in us as a company, as WayUp, they're going to be very serious about checking out the applicants from students who applied from WayUp. Opposed to if you went on Adobe's website and you just applied there, you're going to kind of be in that filter of just like that pool of all the students who applied to Adobe from the website, which is a lot. Like imagine 1,000 people are applying for Adobe, this particular internship on their website, opposed to if 20 people applied from WayUp, yes, you're still going to be compared to the 1,000 who applied from the website, but now they actually really get a chance to look at your application and know where you came from and know that you're a source. And they're very serious about this. And it's not only Adobe, it's like all of our companies. Let me see. So I see everyone sharing their companies that they're interested in. Ooh, Estee Lauder. I'm actually really glad you said that because Estee Lauder is actually a partner company of WayUp. So everything that I was telling you just now about how our companies are serious, we have so many different companies in different industries. We have the makeup industry, we have some gaming, we have some real estate. So if you're interested in roles at Estee Lauder, I would encourage you to apply for them on Wake Up because that way the students will, I'm not the students, those hiring managers, those recruiters will know exactly how you found out about them. And what's really exciting is that a lot of times we have virtual events with these companies. So, for example, so going into some of our events, these companies, they have virtual recruitment events, which I think is very helpful because you're able to get like inside scoop about the programs because they're able to, they have their own presentations. A lot of times they have past interns who come on and share their experience. So for this one that's actually coming up, with Capital Group. So say if you're interested in the finance tech world with specifically client services, you can RSVP for this virtual event. And the same way how you're joining here, you can join on this event. This event is actually the 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you're able to hear even more in-depth information about this role, this company. So I see a question came in. Do you mind if you tell attendees to share their messages with everyone? Oh, ooh, I see you really know Zoom. Yeah. So I see for some people, so when you're sending in the chat, Zoom kind of automatically shares to host and panelists. So just be sure to change that to everyone so everyone can see what you're sharing, because I definitely want you all to get to know each other. What I really like about these events is a great opportunity for you to network with other students who are looking for those same roles as you, or may have some insights. Like you might actually meet someone here who's interning at a company that you would love to work at. And you met at this event, you networked, you connected, then they're connecting you to their manager, and now boom, you have an internship. So I think something that could be really cool if everyone like shared their LinkedIns in the chat and like connect with each other. Because a lot of times, like I remember when I was in college, a lot of roles that I found out about were because of my classmates. Like they were the ones who told me about programs, or they made those connections with those recruiting teams so I can get to know what was going on. So going back to some questions that were submitted, what strategies and research methods do you recommend for effective job searching as a student seeking a well-paying position that offers valuable learning and career experiences? My number one strategy when it comes to job searching as a student is to be very, 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 very specific with what you're looking for. Like I know, like one of the reasons why I had a lot of you share the different companies that you're interested in, because sometimes some of these companies, they have like a common theme. Like going back to the person who mentioned Dior, Sony, Google, the Met. Automatically, when I think of Dior and the Met, I'm thinking fashion, I'm thinking arts. So that means you're interested in companies who have that focus. Or if it's like Sony and Google and YouTube, those big tech companies, the ones that are in Silicon Valley. And then once you kind of like, the way I like to see it, you can narrow down specifically the companies that you're interested in, and then even further the type of marketing that they do. So like for Dior and the Met, I know that their marketing is going to be surrounded by the arts. For Google, they have so many different types. They have product marketing, they have social media marketing. And then even for NPR, I know they have a lot of opportunities when it comes to, podcasting, and same thing with the socials. So once you narrow down your companies, you can narrow down the specific type of role that you have. Because I feel like for every industry, there's always different branches. Like for marketing, there's email marketing, social media marketing, digital marketing. For software engineering, there could be software engineering. There's so many, like there could be some in the fashion realm, there could be some in the gaming realm. So once you kind of narrow down the companies or just a type of the specific field that you're looking for, it helps you on your search, because you're not just going to apply for every role that you see that's marketing. Because if your passion is in creative marketing, you're not going to apply for marketing at a role that's like at a bank, because that might be boring to you. That might not be what you're looking for. So I always encourage people to be very, very specific on their search, because when you're specific, you have to be picky on, like, I definitely understand, when you're looking for roles, and it could be hard, because I remember when I was applying for full-time roles, it was very hard. But you have to be picky because you want to be somewhere that brings you joy. Like you don't want to just be somewhere that you find out 6 months later you're unhappy at. So be very specific. Another research method, definitely another fun fact that people don't realize, a lot of companies, they have early career pages. So their early career pages is typically separate from their seasoned career pages. So for example, let's look up one. So Capital One, who is also another partner with um WayUp, they have a dedicated student and grads page. And from here, you're able to learn more about their specific student programs. So for here, I'm able to see they have an internship program. So that's great if you haven't received your bachelor's. They have full-time programs where specifically they're looking for those students who are recent grads, who just graduated, and they have rotational programs where it's kind of like, I like to describe rotational programs as like a full-time internship. Like you're still treated as an employee, but you're able to rotate in different departments. And in the end, when you graduate that program, you can kind of like decide which department that you want. So for Capital One, they have a number of early um, career programs for recent grads. So they have this commercial rotational program where you can do different rotations within commercial banking. They have one for students who are interested in HR. So, you know, DEI efforts and things like that. They also have it for products. So for students who are interested in product marketing or just, you know, the Capital One product, because, you know, they're like banking, they have credit cards. So what I always encourage people to do, and I'll put it in the chat, whatever company that you're looking for, look up their name. I'm typing in insert company name plus early career. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find their early career website and you're going to just find specific student specific, recent grad specific programs, frequently asked questions, and virtual events for you to check out. And because when I see these pages, that tells me that they're very dedicated to working with these recent grads because they have the career pages. Like I think you all might have seen it, and I'll pull it up too. They have the career pages for the seasoned employees, whether like, you know, mid-level, junior level, senior level, but then they also have the early career page. So those students in recent grads, like you kind of like, it is good to kind of be separated because it can be very confusing to be on these career pages. And you're trying to find entry-level roles and everything is like, yeah, you need 3 to 5 years. But if you go to that company specific early career page, you're going to see roles that are specifically targeted towards students like you. So sometimes you might not see a dedicated page, but you might see a column within their career page. And that's also very helpful. But another cool thing to like kind of eliminate all of that, go to WayUp. Because a lot of times we have a lot of companies that we're partnered with. So their early career content, their early career roles, they live on our page. So you can apply here and you don't have to do all this searching. So I definitely encourage you all to, you know, give us a chance because we have brands such as L'Oreal, we had Fox, we have Unilever, we have Capital One, like I mentioned, and CVS. So we have a wide range of partners across a wide range of audiences. So I definitely feel like, and especially just from everyone who commented below, there is something for everyone. So are there any questions? I have some submitted, but I definitely would love to answer any questions live that you all have. So definitely feel free to chat them down below. Okay. So one that came in is, how do you actually get an internship when in this day and age, some internships are required to have experience? How do you pivot in a different industry? Okay, we'll start with this first question. So how do you actually get an internship? I think this is like a very hot key one that a lot of people ask because I've heard that like sometimes, you know, you're interested in an internship, but you've never had one before. My biggest thing would be to, on your resume, really highlight the courses that you're taking, because a lot of times the courses that you're taking for, like, say, like I use marketing as an example because it's the easiest one, but you're marketing major and you're taking marketing courses, highlight that. Because you can show employers, I may not necessarily have the work experience, but I'm learning this at work. I mean, I'm learning this at school. I'm learning the different, like, whether if you're taking like a social media marketing class or email marketing, you can reference that on your resume. So put your courses, if there's any projects that you've done, like that's the biggest thing. Like if you don't have any work experience, you want to leverage on your classes. You want to highlight the classes that you've taken. You want to highlight any class projects related to that field that you've done. And you can, what I love too about resumes, you can link that. Like if it's a project where it's on Google or if you have it on Canva, you can link that. That way that those employees, they can check out the projects that you've done and they can see that you really put in the work. And if you have any volunteer experiences, you can do that and highlight that there. That way, it's like your resume has content because you don't want to submit a resume that's like pretty empty. So highlight your classes, highlight projects that you've done, highlight any volunteer experiences. And another thing too, if you have any personal projects or businesses that you're doing that's related into your field, highlight that. Because for me, throughout my college year, I had a personal blog. I still have one, and I always included that on my resume, especially when it was for industries that I didn't have traditional work experience. I wanted to show them like through my blog, I'm learning marketing, I'm learning comms, I'm learning how to use these different platforms and techniques that will be used in the internship. So, you want to make sure you're well-rounded. So another question is, how do you handle rejection from employers, both for internships and job opportunities? I really relate to this because there were many times where I had got rejected for a lot of things. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you kind of take it to heart, especially when you're applying for so many different things and you keep getting told no. But something that really helped me was just understanding that like sometimes you don't know. Like you may not know what's happening on the other side. That company, they could be doing layoffs, and that's why they're not able to accept anyone, or that program that you applied for, suddenly that went away. And sometimes, and I think the thing is like there's always going to be someone who may be better for that job. And that's fine because that means that that job was for you, for them, but you're still going to find something for you. So I always hear people say like, rejection is redirection. So at a certain point, you kind of just have to like brush it off because you're going to get rejected for things. But eventually, when you find that thing that clicks, like the thing you were meant to be with, you're not even going to remember those rejections. And you're just going to be happy that you're at somewhere that really values you and where they really, really want you. So my biggest advice there is to just, you gotta just have to just like pretend like what I used to do when I got rejected. Literally, because you can kind of tell in like the subject line where they're like, unfortunately, or update on your application. I delete it. I delete the email. I don't even open the email. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this ruin my day. So that's my biggest advice. Next time you get a rejection, don't even open the email. Delete it. Literally delete it and keep on moving and remind yourself that rejection is redirection. I hope that helps. How do you pivot in a different industry in your marketing profession? I can answer this question in terms of just like pivoting industry, period, because that's actually one question I got where how do you pivot in your industry that you're currently working into another industry that you're passionate about and how to translate that into your resume and portfolio. So for me, I have a degree in maternal and child health. I was very adamant on getting a role in that realm in public health, but then I decided that I wanted to change into marketing and comms. So for me, that kind of first step, if you still have time in your schooling, would be to look for internships in that realm. Because from there, you're able to get some sort of work experience. So when you eventually want to decide to move into that role full time, you'll have at least one of those under your belt. So for me, I knew early senior year that I wanted to change industries. So I went looking for an internship and I had a marketing internship at Penguin Random House. And that was real. That way I was able to get the exposure because sometimes you could think that you want to be in an industry, but you won't know what it's like until you're actually doing the work. So for me, I had to get that work. And then when eventually like I had another internship in PR and then my first full-time role was in advertising at TikTok. At that point I had the marketing internship on my resume and the public relationship internship on my resume, but then I was also leveraging the other things that were on my resume, such as my blog. That was my biggest thing, to show that I have some sort of experience. And you sometimes you just have to kind of like really tailor your resume to those roles. Like, especially if you know that you may not have that direct transition traditional experience, you can kind of leverage some of the work that you've done in other roles to show that you had that experience. Like for me, I think I had, like for my marketing internships when I was applying for like other roles, I looked at what I did in my marketing internship and what was in the job description of those roles I was looking at in a different industry, and I tailored my experience. And it's very easy. Like sometimes, like once you can kind of see the connections, because a lot of times some roles, if it's in very similar industries, there's connections. So you kind of just like have to like play around, do some fun wordplay. But when you finally get to the point where you can get into some interviews, be very open with your interviews about the fact that you're looking for that career pivot, and highlight the things that you've done in which you feel is related to that role. So that was something I had did a lot where, I me and the interviewer both knew that I didn't have any advertising, I didn't have any sales experience, but I was able to talk on other things that I did that I felt was really related to the role. Because sometimes you just have to be very honest in that way. And because in the fact that they're even interviewing, that means that they might see something in your resume that you didn't realize was related to the role that made them want to interview you. So just that's my biggest thing there. Would you provide an example in your portfolio? Or was the question is, would I provide an example of my portfolio? I think this is to Asha. Can we also talk about how to create a portfolio? Yes, there are actually a number of websites that like there's different ways you can create a portfolio. What I'll do right now, real quick, is I'll pull up my portfolio. So I made my portfolio specifically on Adobe Portfolio. It is very free to use and is very customizable. So for me, this is where I highlighted my professional work, my content that I did with my blog, any graphic design work, and some influencer campaigns, because I'm also an influencer. So for here, I linked this on my resume along with my LinkedIn, because a lot of people don't realize, but your LinkedIn is kind of like your portfolio too, because you're able to go more in depth about the roles that you've done. You can attach examples of projects, and something that, like, the way I use LinkedIn, I document my career journeys. Like everywhere I've worked at thus far, I've kind of had like a post that was dedicated to just keeping my network updated with what I was doing. And that's great, because when employers are looking for your work or just looking to see the different things that you've done, they have like, in the way I see it, like a blog of everything that you've ever done. So they can kind of like go through it and read it and learn more about, the work that you've done, any stories that you have to share. They can see any projects that you've included. So for my portfolio, I went even further. Like, yes, I went further in my LinkedIn, but I went even more in depth because I was able to use visuals. Like, for example, here, like I have it on my resume that I was a Bumble campus director, and I have it on my LinkedIn, but from here I'm able to add visuals. I talked about the timeline of when I was doing that role and my pictures from it. I went more in depth. So just kind of like painting a picture, because you can easily talk about it, you can easily include it, but like it's nice to like paint a picture so they can really see. Like, for example, like in my time as a role as a campus rep, we hosted a student organization competition. So I included pictures from that. I included other visuals of the work I was doing so they can really see and put themselves into the work that I'm doing. So I highly recommend that you check out Adobe Portfolio. It's very to my knowledge, it's free to use. Canva also has a lot of different templates of portfolios that you can use and you can drag and drop. And I'm big on um examples. So I'll include my portfolio in the chat. So if any of you want to create your portfolio, you have an example of what one could look like. Yes. Also Wix.com. Wix.com is really good. Like I know a lot of people use websites. So I included an example of my portfolio. So if you want to create your own, you have an idea. And the cool things with portfolio is you have a lot of creative free reign because this is you. This is your moment to showcase who you are. Okay, so another great question that came in is what are some ways to maintain great connections slash relationships when networking? So this, I love that question. I actually literally went to a networking event yesterday with my friend who is in MLT. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with MLT, I think, or if you're involved. There's like a number of different organizations where you can kind of start those networks. Like there's professional Greek orgs such as Alpha Kappa Psi, Delta Sigma Pi. There's also ones very specific for majors. Like I know the engineering majors, they have one, as well as I know some people who are in a music fraternity. So my biggest thing, if you can, would be to find those Greek organizations for your major. Like if you just looked up your major and looked up, like, for example, health science fraternity or health science sorority, you'll find those. And from there, it's really cool because you're able to meet everyone who is in that field and make those connections, especially people who have been in that organization for years. So that's a great way. Or programs such as MLT. I know a lot of campuses have MLT. I'll put their link in the chat. And from here, you're able to make that networking connections. So I know every semester in the fall and the spring, a lot of campuses have career fairs. That's a really great way for you. Oh, yes, I will also send my link to my LinkedIn. And just send me a note that you're from this event so I'll know. So when you're going to career fairs, not only are you able to like meet recruiters and just hiring managers, but you can also mix and mingle with your fellow students because sometimes you might even, find yourself interning at the same place as someone or interested in interning at the same place as a classmate that you've never met before. So I think those are really great ways to like organically network with people. There's also a number of conferences that happen every year, like there's literally so many. So I would recommend like looking up like your major, your degree, or your field and looking up student conferences or just conferences that you can attend. I know a lot of college campuses have a few like specific orgs. So like join those. And I like a lot of times when I connect with people, I like to connect with them on LinkedIn because I'm able to see, what they're doing. They can see what I am doing. And I always encourage people to just like go in with like a very organic approach to networking because you don't want to just like come off very like, hi, nice to meet you, can you help me with a job? Like you want to have a real and authentic relationship with people. So the more you like go out there and talk to people and connect with them, you're going to find things in common. Like I always encourage people, like when I go to networking events, like probably like when I go to networking events, probably like 30% of the conversation I'm having with someone is about business. And the other 70% is getting to know them as a person. Because when you get to know people, you can see what you have in common. You can see what, who you may know in common. And from there, like you just develop that relationship. So it doesn't feel so forced. It's like, I actually know someone. This is my friend and they're in my industry and they can put me onto opportunities. So like going with a friend, a friendly, open approach. So another question that came in is, have you come across any healthcare internships? And if so, where can healthcare major students look for more opportunities pertaining to the field? I definitely feel like WayUp is a really great resource, but outside of that, so every year WayUp has a top 100 internship programs of the year, and these are nominated by students. And I'm gonna send this in the chat. And honestly, I like to consider it like kind of like you're shopping for an internship, because first you're gonna go into this list. You already know that 100 there's 100 options for you. You already know that. But even further, you know that your peers nominated these programs as being the best. So I would encourage start to go here. Like I know we have a wide range of like, because healthcare, there's like so many different industries and companies. Like I cannot think of many off the top of my head, but I know, for example, like there's a WayUp, I'll look it up, Elevance Health. They're an healthcare organization that works with us, and they have a number of roles. So like I'll send that in the chat. Actually, I'll respond to the person if they're still here in the Q&A. Oh, yeah, and it went to the answer tab. So from there, this is a company that works with WayUp in the healthcare space. They have internships that are on here for undergrad and graduate. So I would encourage, kind of like go through our website to see the different organizations that we have in that field and go through that top 100s list, because you can just go through all these lists and see the different programs, and you might see some of the companies that a lot of you said that you wanted to work for, and now that they were nominated as a top internship program. So that also helps. And then for me specifically, when it comes to healthcare, just kind of like think of the big names in the industry. So automatically I'm thinking Planned Parenthood. They have internships that I know of, and Truth Initiative. Let me see. This is another one that, let me actually see. I actually don't know if they're doing internships. So I'll send them in a chat. Like these little health organizations that you may see on the day to day, they have internships. Like automatically, when I think of the COVID vaccines, I think of Pfizer. Pfizer has internships. And I can't remember the other one, but like kind of like think about the products that you use in your daily life, or just products that are known in the healthcare industry. Find out who that company is and then look up if they have internships. That is a really great way that can help you. Okay, another good question that really came in is, are there any issues that employers are continually seeing with the Gen Z applicant pool that makes it harder to fill positions? This is a really good question, and something that I've heard just being on, working at WayUp, and I meet with so many different recruiters and hiring teams as I hear more about what they're looking for, or, what's going on in that landscape. And I will say, like, a big thing that I hear a lot is that students are not doing research. Like a lot of times some students, they see an internship opening and they just apply. It doesn't matter where, they just start applying. You just send out so many applications, and then say someone actually does hit you up for an interview and you don't know anything about this company. And I think the one of the biggest things that will be very helpful, that I feel like not a lot of people are doing, is their research on the company. Like if you come into that first interview and you know so much about them, like you're able to talk about their mission and their programs, they're going to be very impressed, because there's not a lot of people who are doing that. So you have to constantly, when you go into interviews, you have to think of like, how can I stand out compared to everyone else who is applying? Like, what can you do that people aren't doing? And some things that people aren't doing that you could do, and this is like, really write this down. Do your research on the company. So when you go into the interviews, you can talk about the company. Like you don't want to go into an interview and be like, can you tell me about your company? Like, no, you should know about the company. Two, another thing that I do in every interview I've ever done, when you're doing an interview with someone, 9 times out of 10, you're getting a calendar invite or their email with that person's full name. Look them up on LinkedIn and check them out. See their career history, see what they've done, see what they're doing at the company. And another thing that goes into another thing people don't do a lot is ask questions. At every interview, they're always going to ask you to, if you have any questions for them. This is where you can talk to your interviewer about their journey, and you can connect with them, and you can learn more about what they're doing, or how they got there. Like a question that I love to ask is, what brought you to this particular company and what has kept you there? So do your research on the company and do your research on the interviewers, and just wow them, because they're going to be very surprised. Like the fact that you did all that research and you took that time to get to know them and the company, they don't come across that very often. So that would allow you to stand out. So that's my biggest thing. Like, do so much research that when you get onto the interview, at a certain point, they're going to kind of stop asking questions and it's going to become a conversation. Because I feel like the best interviews are the ones that are conversations. Because like I've been on interviews where like it became a conversation. They probably asked me like 1 to 2 questions, and the next, we're chatting, we're vibing, and there you can kind of like organically drop like what you're looking for, or what you're looking for in just like career wise or at that company. And it just becomes more authentic opposed to just like a stiff button up interview. So I hope that's helpful. I guess something I would love for people to chat down below is like, what is your current struggle right now on your job search? Like, what is something that stresses you out so much as you're trying to find internships or entry level jobs? I'd love to see like what some of your pain points are, because it's stressful. I hear a lot on LinkedIn and just from the students in my audience, just like it's hard. It's really hard and it's very competitive. So I would love to hear, what are some of your current struggles going through multiple. Yes, that very much sucks. So someone has said going through multiple interviews just to have a no. For that, it kind of sucks, and it's like for that one, it's kind of like it's out of your control because that's kind of on them, and it speaks to them as a company. And honestly, you wouldn't want to be at a company that would waste your time with multiple interviews just to tell you no. Because sometimes if they put you through all those interviews just to tell you no, they kind of already had someone lined up, or they kind of already knew who they were going to go for. Or like I said, sometimes things change. Sometimes the program gets shut down, or sometimes they decide to do a hiring freeze. So when it comes to things like that, think of it like you wouldn't want to be there. You wouldn't want to be with a company that will waste your time like that. So anyone else, what are some other struggles that people are having right now on their job searching journey? And if not, I can go into some of the other questions I have. We have a few more minutes before having temporary access to necessary software to practice outside school hours. That is a very good point. I've heard about that. Like sometimes, like, once you graduate, they kind of like shut down your access. I know a lot of times companies, they have a lot of like really good student discounts. Like I know Adobe has a very like affordable student discount, which kind of sucks is like you have free access at school, but then you have to pay. But that is a good avenue to look into. Another good question that I had that someone submitted was, how do you stay on top of searching in the midst of applying and vice versa? So for that, what I did, I had a spreadsheet on Google. I know sometimes some people are like really into Notion, and Notion just has so many different templates where you can kind of like create a chart and keep track of the roles that you're applying for. So that's what I did. Like every time I applied for a role, I put the role, I put the description, because I always want to reference that job description and, just see what that role is. And I had like a drop down. So I'll have like applied, or if I got an interview, I'll change that to interviewed, or if I got denied in my application, I'll change that to application denied. So I definitely recommend creating a chart. You can use Notion, you can create your own chart on Google. That way, because sometimes you find yourself just applying to so many roles you don't even realize. But if you have that chart, you're able to just like stay accountable with yourself and keep track of where you're applying for, where did you apply to, when did you apply? Because sometimes you can apply to places and they don't get back. And if you have this chart, you're like, wait, I applied to you 6 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything. So I recommend Notion and Google Sheets and creating your chart. Um, mm, I totally get that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to deal with that. And hopefully change things changes that way you can, get access to those applications so you can really develop your skill set there. And honestly, sometimes I know there's like certification programs, even though sometimes these certification programs kind of require you to do the platform. But if you look into the certification programs for the particular platforms that you're looking at, that could be very helpful, or just reading documentations, or YouTube. I know YouTube, like it would be great. Like you could probably like study the features. So when you do get access to those platforms, you'll kind of know what to do, or you can kind of like gather up a resource folder of, how to's and guides to use those platforms. So when you get access, you already have something to reference. So it's kind of like when you're studying with a textbook. Like you have the textbook, but then you apply the knowledge. Consider like that phase as, you're studying before you use the platform. And this is specifically for someone in the chat who mentioned something with Adobe. Another question that came in was, what could be missing for someone who believes they're qualified for a position and writes a good cover letter but keeps getting rejections? My biggest thing would be to think about when you're applying for jobs, like, are you tailoring your resume? Are you just submitting your resume as is to every role? Because sometimes when you don't tailor your resume and it's just a very generic resume that has nothing, is not really related to the role or anything, it's hard for your resume to get noticed because you want to have things that kind of like stand out. So when you tailor your resume, when that recruiter is scanning, because I'm sure you guys have heard this fact that recruiters spend 6 to 7 seconds reviewing a resume. You want to make sure you have those key words. So say you're looking in the job description and you're seeing these constant keywords. You want to put that in your resume. So when they're scanning your resume, their eyes are immediately going to jump to those keywords. And then they're like, wait, let me look at this resume much closely. So that's the biggest thing. So like make sure you're putting what's in the job description in your resume. And I don't mean just like copy and pasting bullet points from the job description into your resume. Use what you have for your past experience and kind of like with some very creative wordplay, incorporate those keywords that you're seeing in that job description. That way, when the recruiter is looking through your resume, their eyes are able to easily jump because there's gonna be key things that they're looking for when they're looking at resumes for a particular role. So if their eyes are able to jump to what they're looking for, it's gonna give them pause. They're gonna look at your resume and they're gonna be like, wait, I actually want to interview this person. So that give it there. How would you recommend looking for remote jobs? I'm interested in going back to Nigeria after school and working remotely. One thing I will say when it comes to remote roles, especially now, I feel like it's kind of phasing out. Like a lot of like a few years ago, pretty much any and every role was remote. But now that COVID restrictions have been lifted, a lot of these companies are going back to office. Like I feel like it's very, very hard to find remote roles because of that transition. It's not impossible, but it has become harder. So from there, I can't think about the top of my head, but if you look up, I'll type in the key, like search up remote job boards. Because there are specifically job boards. Like I know one is called builtin.com. I believe so. And they have remote roles, like all the roles that they have on that job board are remote. So if you go to those websites, you're going to be able to find remote roles that are specifically only remote because a lot of times these companies they're moving back into office, so they're not remote. So search up remote job boards and search up builtin.com or just built-in remote job board. Because I know for built-in they have like a general website, but then they also have very specific, like they have built-in New York, built-in Chicago, and it will show you remote roles that are in that city. So that can help you there. What are some tips? What are some tips that can also help with AI generated scan too? That I honestly, just being honest, I don't know too much about because AI is still very new and it's kind of a little scary. But I would really encourage people like um real people are reading these resumes. Like I know there's like a lot of talk about AI is reading a resume. Like there are real people who are reading their resume. So I would just kind of still operate in the way that a real person is reviewing your resume. So don't worry too much about the AI. And this is my opinion. Everyone else has different opinions, but I'm also still very new to AI, so can't really fully speak on it. What are your biggest interview? The next question I have is, what are your biggest interview tips if you struggle to get over the line? Also, what are the most important soft skills to highlight in interviews? I think my biggest interview tips, what I mentioned before, do your research on the company. Like literally before you get on the interview, do your research there, find out what their mission is, do your research on the role. So go back to that role and look at the job description and really see what they're looking for. Sometimes it even mentions the team that you'll be sitting under, and also to do your research on whoever's interviewing you. So whoever you've been told that you're going to be speaking with, look them up on LinkedIn and see what they're doing and see what they're doing at the company, what they've done in the past, and kind of incorporate that into your interview. So when you get to the part where they're, asking you questions about why you're interested in that role, you're able to answer that. And when you're the point where you ask questions, you can even interview your interviewer. You can ask them more about the role. You can ask them about their thoughts on the company. And there are a number of like really great questions. Like I have on my LinkedIn, if you guys follow me on LinkedIn, you'll probably see some of my posts where I share a bunch of really good questions that you can ask. So that will be very helpful. I also think another important thing too is to really solidify your why. Because no matter where you interview, they're always going to ask you, why do you want to work here? So you want to, when you're able to do your research on a company, you can incorporate that research that you've learned about the company and incorporate that into your explanation, as well as explaining, your own career journeys and what you're passionate and what you're looking for. So really solidify your why. So my biggest things is do your research on the company you're interviewing, do research on the interviewer, come prepared with about 5 questions to ask them, and be very solid and like solidify your why do you want to work there? Why do you want to work in this industry? And in terms of important soft skills, um, if you can always just try to make an interview a conversation. Like you don't want it to be like so stiff and awkward, like just make it very conversational and just remind yourself that you're being interviewed because they are genuinely interested in you. They saw something in your resume, they saw something in your application that made them want to talk to you. So like pat yourself on the back. It's like, wow, like they want to meet me. Like and like you don't like try to bring more of your personality into your interviews too. Like I always, whenever I have an interview, I'm still in that professional mindset, but like I bring more of myself. Like I want them to know that I'm a person. Because a biggest thing that I've always learned is like people hire people. So bring your authentic self, but still be professional, still like be respectful, but like remember that they're excited to meet you. So introduce yourself to them in that way. And yeah, someone mentioned like LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, YouTube, they're really, very helpful. Like I use them a lot, especially when I was transitioning. Like I looked up the industry because I was trying to transition into early career recruiting and in that realm. I did certifications and I did lessons in that field because I knew I didn't have that traditional work experience, but I still did that further research to learn more about that field. And I was able to talk about that in my interviews. And I was able to like reference the things that these people in that industry I'm looking for are dealing with on a daily basis. So really immerse yourself, especially if you're doing a career pivot or especially if you just, you may not have enough experience. There's a lot of free certifications. There's a lot of free, like, you can stay up to date with like news in your industry through newsletters, and they share a lot of information too. So by the time you get on these calls, it's like you're kind of already in the industry because you've done so much, you're immersing yourself. Like the last 2 years, I've immersed myself so much in early career recruiting that now that I'm in this realm and I'm at a company that focuses on that, I know a lot of things and I'm still learning a lot more on the job. So it kind of helps with that imposter syndrome because it's like I did the research and I did the work to be here. So I really encourage you all to do that. So another question is, what advice do you have for May 2024 graduates looking for full-time positions post-graduations? How should I navigate applying for a position that I will not be able to start working for until several months so I can have a job lined up? So, two things about that. And I actually made a really good post about this on LinkedIn today. I'm going to share with you all. So, there's something called rotational programs that I mentioned it earlier, and they're like, um, I like to consider them as full-time internships, and you're rotating within an industry, and there's professional development and there's networking, and you're able to um connect with people. But it's cool because you're like, say for, I know for Capital One, they have a rotational program. And say that in that rotational program, they have 3 different tracks: marketing, HR, and sales. And every so months, you're able to rotate in these tracks and learn more about that field and learn more about that track at that company. And then towards the end, you kind of get the decision on which pathway you can go to. So if you're in that situation where it's like, I'm kind of not really ready to do full-time work, you can do a rotational program. It's still full-time, but you're doing it with other people who are in that same boat as you, where they just graduated and they're trying to figure out what they want to do, but they don't know. Or um you just have that like wiggle room to really explore, so it doesn't feel like you're kind of just like thrown into the full-time realm. Like looking back, I wish I did a rotational program. Like I was fine in my first full-time role, but like it would have been nice to be doing it with other people who are still trying to like figure things out. So in this post I did on LinkedIn, I shared a little more about what rotational programs are, and I shared a link to like over 50 rotational programs. So for you all, there's probably something that you can, find for yourself there. And now the time where a lot of these programs are opening up those applications. So when you're applying for a rotational program, they know that you haven't graduated yet. They know that you're about to be recent grad. So the start date is usually like, sometimes it's like June or July, or it's usually after you graduate. So now would be the best time to look into those programs. But if if you don't want to do a rotational program and you want to just do a full-time route, I wouldn't recommend applying now, because if you're looking at job applications now, they're kind of looking for someone who can start in the next like 6 weeks. So if you know that you're about to graduate in May, I would recommend looking at roles around March, April, because with the interview process, that's probably going to take a month depending on where. But just also be very clear in your interview where it's like, hey, I'm free to start. And then after your graduation date, that's when you can say. So if you're looking for a full-time role and you want to start ASAP, start looking in March and April. But if you want some more time and you still want to do something full-time, look into rotational programs. And I shared that link in the chat. And from there, those usually start later on, and you'll have something. And a lot of times these rotational programs, like the salary, it's like a full-time salary. Like you're still a full-time worker, but it's kind of like it's like a full-time internship. That's how I like to define them. But I see we are over time. So I really hope that this was helpful for everyone. I really enjoyed chatting with you all and helping you all on your journeys. I definitely understand the struggles of it was stressful. It was very stressful trying to find a full-time role. So that's why I really created the ninth semester, because I understood that stress, and I was looking for other people like me in that realm where they were still early career, but also kind of like in their career, to give that advice. So I'm happy to help. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and I post content pretty much weekly. I also have a newsletter that you'll see on my page where I can send more opportunities and more tips and advice to you directly. And I highly encourage you all to check out WayUp, because just looking at what some of the roles that you all said that you're looking for and the things you're looking for, it's on this platform. Trust me. Trust me, it is here. We have a lot of really awesome companies. And if you want extra help, or if you're like kind of confused or have any more questions, definitely feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'll try my best to direct you in the best way possible. Yes, thank you. I'm so happy that this was very helpful. It was really great chatting with you all. All right. See you all on LinkedIn. Good luck. Thank you. Bye.